President John F. Kennedy set the US goal to win the space race by declaring the US would go to?
Sharp thinking. The moon is the right choice. What year did the space race end with the Apollo-Soyuz joint program mission? 1975 is a brilliant choice. Who were the two participants in the space race?
Right again. The Isser and us is a valid answer.
President Eisenhower used this expression to describe his belief that nuclear weapons were more cost-effective than large regular armies.
Perfect. More bang for the buck is the correct choice. When did the space race start?
Clear logic. Your choice, 1957, is sound and 100% true. What was a significant feature of the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War? You got it! Your choice, arms race, is right. What was the significant effect of the arms race on US defense spending by the end of Eisenhower's presidency? You're right. It increased by 40% is the correct answer. The United States and the Soviet Union both built up nuclear weapons during the Cold War. This was known as... Great job. The arms race is the accurate answer. What organization was created by the United States in response to the Soviet challenge in the space race?
Oh. Nice work. You chose NASA, and it is correct.
Which country launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik, marking the beginning of the space race? Solid response. Soviet Union is a valid choice. What event marked the beginning of the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union? Good job. Your answer, the Soviet Union's first atomic bomb test, works well here. How did arms control agreements affect the relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union? Ooh. Smart move. They provided avenues for negotiation and cooperation is an accurate answer. What type of missile did the United States and Soviet Union work to develop during the arms race? On track. Intercontinental ballistic missiles is the correct answer. What was the acronym for the arms reduction talks between the United States and the Soviet Union?
Smart pick. SALT is the correct choice.
What was a widespread fear during the generation that grew up under the shadow of the arms race? Well picked. Imminent catastrophe and the survival of humanity is the correct answer. Which countries were involved in the most famous arms race in the history of the United States? Good thinking. United States and Soviet Union is the right answer. When the United States and the Soviet Union started competing to build more and better weapons? Well reasoned. Nuclear arms race is the correct choice. During the arms race, what was the next type of nuclear device created after the atomic bomb? Right choice. Hydrogen bomb is the best answer. During the nuclear arms race, the US and Daesh competed to build more destructive weapons. Well done. Soviet Union is the right choice. What was the buildup of armies and weapons between the US and the Soviet Union known as? Exactly. Arms race makes sense, and it is right choice. What event put the United States back in the race for achievements in space exploration?
You chose first photos of the far side of the moon. And it is correct.
Until what year did the arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union last?
Nicely done. 1990 is a solid answer.
What marked the first time the superpowers agreed to reduce their nuclear arsenals? Strong choice. The signing of the INF Treaty is the right answer.
What did the Soviet Union and us do to handle the arms race in the 70s and 80s?
Nice selection. Continually add to numbers and quality of missiles is the correct and valid answer. What was the impact of the arms race on the economies of the US and Soviet Union? Correct. It led to economic decline is the right answer. Which country ignited the space race by launching the first satellite? Sputnik I. Excellent choice. Soviet Union is the right answer. Which word refers to when only one person or country has control over something?
Bravo. Monopoly is the answer.
Which countries were involved in the arms race besides the US and Soviet Union? Correct response. Great Britain and France is the most accurate answer. What two countries were most involved in the arms race during the Cold War? Valid point. United States and Soviet Union is true. Which country started the arms race by developing the nuclear bomb in 1945? Great thinking. USA is the right choice. When did the arms race between the Soviet Union and the United States end? Nice work. You chose 1991 and it is correct. A competition between nations to build powerful weapons is called DASH. Sharp thinking. Arms race is the right choice. What event effectively ended the arms race? The start of the Gulf War. Perfect. The collapse of the Soviet Union is the correct choice. The space race was meant to prove which country had the most superior. Smart pick. Technology is the correct choice. Which of the following is evidence for the US winning the space race? All. Right again. Armstrong took the first steps on the moon is a valid answer. Which term means the stockpiling of nuclear weapons to prevent a war? Bravo. Arms race is the answer. What two places were bombed and caused the beginning of the arms race? Valid point. Hiroshima, Nagasaki is true. What was the treaty called that helped put an end to the arms race? Correct response. The Conventional Forces in Europe Treaty is the most accurate answer. When did the United States win the race to put humans on the moon? Good thinking. 1969 is the right answer. What did the nuclear arms race lead to the development of by 1960? Clear logic. Your choice, intercontinental ballistic missiles, is sound and 100% true. What was the primary goal of the space race during the Cold War? Excellent choice. To achieve firsts in space exploration is the right answer. What significant event in 1906 escalated the naval arms race? Good job. Your answer, Britain, launched the Dreadnought works well here. How can the global arms race affect international relations? Well picked. By increasing tensions and competition between nations is the correct answer.
What was the purpose of the SALT-I and SALT-I agreements?
Excellent. To reduce the arms race is a brilliant choice.
During the arms race, the US and the Soviet Union were. Right choice. Stockpiling nuclear weapons is the best answer. What event put the United States back in the space race? You're right. First photos of the far side of the moon is the correct answer.
What is the main topic of the TED Talk by Alexander Wang?
Strong choice. The new global arms race is the right answer. Why did the Soviets reject the open skies proposal? Great thinking. They saw it as an infringement on their sovereignty, is the right choice. Which event marked the beginning of the space race? Smart move. The launch of Sputnik is an accurate answer. What war was the nuclear arms race correlated with? You got it. Your choice, the Cold War, is right. What is the main focus of Alexander Wang's TED Talk?
On track. The impact of Aeon warfare is the correct answer.
What did MAD stand for in regards to the arms race? Well reasoned. Mutually assured destruction is the correct choice. When was the nuclear arms race officially started? Great Job 1959 is the accurate answer. The Soviets kicked off the space race in 1957. How?
You chose by launching Sputnik, the world's first satellite. And it is correct.
A race to achieve the nuclear weapon superiority.
Correct. Nuclear arms race is the right answer.
Which event marked the height of the arms race? Nicely done. The Cuban Missile Crisis is a solid answer. What did the arms race lead to advancements in?
Nice selection. Airplanes, jets, tanks, and other weapon systems is the correct and valid answer.
The war between the US and the Soviet Union?
Solid response. Cold War is a valid choice.
When did the arms race mostly come to an end? Well done. With the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 is the right choice. What event effectively ended the arms race? Exactly. The collapse of the Soviet Union makes sense, and it is right choice. The people want to spend more money in Dash. Solid response. Schools, roads, parks, and to feed hungry people is a valid choice. When did the height of the arms race occur?
Nice selection. 1962 is the correct and valid answer.
This event set off the nuclear arms race.
Well picked. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is the correct answer.
When did the arms race officially start? Excellent choice. July 16, 1945 is the right answer. The space race was a part of what war? You got it. Your choice, Cold War, is right. How did the US win the space race? Nice work. You chose the first astronauts on the moon, and it is correct. The nickname for the McCarthy era? On track. Red Scare is the correct answer. What year did the arms race end? Exactly. End of 1991 makes sense, and it is right choice. Redwoods were compared to Dash. Right again.
An American football field is a valid answer.
When did the arms race begin?
Strong choice. 29th August 1949 is the right answer.
What started the space race? You chose Soviet Union launched Sputnik. And it is correct. Most people agree that dash.
Right choice. Peace is better than arms race is the best answer.
What does MAD stand for?
Correct response. Mutually assured destruction is the most accurate answer.
How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format.
Excellent. Contact Narayan Changda is a brilliant choice.